Hey, what is up everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and with all the recent craziness in the One Piece story, including new Yonkos, the return of Shanks, the introduction of Green Bull, and more, one massive development hasn't received nearly as much hype as it deserves. The major reveals about Pluton sleeping somewhere on Wano and the existence of Old Wano beneath the surface of New Wano are actually crucial for deciphering the ending of One Piece. This is the key piece of the puzzle, after which all the other pieces are going to fall into place very quickly, so we need to talk about it. Before we get into it, a quick thank you to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Scentbird is a subscription service that allows both men and women to choose from over 500 top designer and niche fragrances and have them delivered directly to their door. I love fragrances, but I don't wear them every day, so I'd pay like $100 or more for a bottle of cologne, and then I'd be stuck with that bottle for a very long time. Because let's be real, I'm not about to spend hundreds more dollars on other bottles before I even use up that one. This is why Scentbird is perfect for me. It allows me to get multiple premium fragrances every single month, and only the amount that I actually need, without the high cost of buying full bottles individually. This month I ordered Eros by Versace and Uomo by Cavalli because I'm classy. But then I realized that these are not exactly the best fragrances for hot summer days. Thankfully, Scentbird also sent me 2 additional fragrances that I think are much better for summer, including Well Played by Confessions of a Rebel and Leighton by Parfum de Marley. I love this service, and you should definitely check it out for yourself. Just click that link below and use my code ANIME55 to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. That's only $8 for your first month. Oh, and Scentbird is now available in Canada, which is awesome because I am in Canada, so that worked out great. Click the link in the description right now. Finally, this video will contain One Piece manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution, you have been warned. Pluton is one of the 3 ancient weapons along with Poseidon and Uranus, and it was first mentioned all the way back in chapter 192. That's when Crocodile asks King Cobra about Pluton's location during the Alabasta arc. And ever since that time, the entire One Piece fanbase has been wondering what exactly Pluton is and where it's located. According to what we've learned along the way, especially during the Water 7 arc, Pluton is an incredibly powerful and technologically advanced battleship that can be turned into a weapon of mass destruction. Pluton is so powerful that several characters in the story believed that getting their hands on it would allow them to practically rule over the entire world. And Pluton is believed to be capable of destroying entire islands with a single attack. Now, unlike Poseidon, which is a power that is inherited by a specific person, Pluton appears to be a physical object. More specifically, it's supposed to be a massive and overpowered battleship, and we know this because blueprints for it actually exist. Or they existed until Frankie destroyed them. That said, before he destroyed them, multiple experienced shipbuilders seemed to confirm that these blueprints were legit, meaning that Pluton really was a battleship that can be physically built using these blueprints. In fact, the blueprints had been preserved for a very specific purpose. Pluton is said to be so powerful that if it ever fell into the wrong hands, someone would need to build a rival Pluton just to stand a chance against the original. And so the secret blueprints were passed on from generation to generation of legendary shipbuilders on Water 7 until they ultimately made their way to Frankie. And speaking of Water 7, the original Pluton is said to have been built on Water 7 during the Void Century. It is likely that Pluton played a major role in the war between the Ancient Kingdom and the alliance that would eventually become the World Government. And since the World Government is not currently in possession of Pluton, it is safe to assume that Pluton was a weapon that was used by the enemies of the World Government, i.e. Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom. In fact, the World Government's fear of the ancient weapons is one of the main reasons why they forbade all study of the poneglyphs. They know that if these ancient weapons were ever to be recommissioned, they would pose an existential threat to the entire world government system. And once the current location of Pluton was finally confirmed in chapter 1055 of the manga, things became even more interesting. The ancient weapon Pluton is currently in Wano. It is apparently buried deep within Mount Fuji, and it has presumably been there for 800 years, ever since the Void Century. Since we know that Wano was never a part of the world government, and since we know that the Kozuki clan created the poneglyphs in the first place, it is safe to assume that Pluton was created and used by the ancient kingdom. And after Joy Boy and his comrades lost the war, they hid Pluton away inside a kingdom that was friendly to them. Frankly, the fact that Pluton is on Wano is probably the main reason why Wano was deliberately isolated from the world for so long. Opening its borders would mean awakening Pluton, and that would make both Pluton and Wano a target for the world government. And so Wano remained isolated and Pluton remained asleep for 8 centuries. And that's an interesting choice of words, isn't it? Pluton is said to be asleep or resting rather than inactive or turned off or decommissioned. If Pluton really was just an inanimate object without some sort of life or will of its own, why use a word like asleep? I'll get back to this point in a little bit, but first let's talk about the fascinating nature of Pluton's secret resting place. In chapter 1055, Robin and Law follow Sukiyaki Kozuki into a secret underground passage underneath the palace, which leads them deep beneath the surface of Wano. The passage actually takes them beneath the sea floor, and on the bottom they discover something incredible. Wano itself is located right there at the bottom of the sea. But wait, didn't they just leave Wano up on the surface? How can Wano be up on the surface and deep beneath the ocean at the same time? Sukiyaki explains that this Wano on the seafloor is the old Wano from 800 years ago, from the time of the Void Century. Sukiyaki doesn't know what exactly happened all those centuries ago, but it's clear that this Wano on the seafloor, the old Wano, was the original Wano. The original Wano was much larger, and it was located much deeper beneath Mount Fuji. And Mount Fuji itself is actually a lot bigger than it appears, but more than half of it is now covered by the sea. At some point around 800 years ago, gigantic walls appeared around Wano, and they formed a perfect seal between Wano and the outside world. Eventually, the rainwater filled up everything beneath the walls, and old Wano was buried deep beneath the water. So, old Wano was abandoned, and a new, smaller Wano was built on the side of Mount Fuji at the point that the mountain emerges from the sea. Pluton is currently resting somewhere beneath the foot of Mount Fuji, but Sukiyaki has never actually seen it, so he doesn't know where exactly it is or what it looks like. Sukiyaki does know one thing though. In order to retrieve Pluton, the giant walls that surround Wano have to be destroyed. This is what it means to open Wano's borders. It means destroying the country's natural defenses and opening it up to all the many threats posed by the outside world. It also means unleashing the ancient weapon Pluton upon the world, which could be a good thing if the weapon gets into the right hands, but it could also be a complete disaster if it ever gets into the wrong hands. Now, Odin clearly wanted to open Wano to the outside world, and yet when he returned to Wano, Odin did not open its borders. Assuming Odin knew about Pluton because he did after all go to Laughdale, it seems clear that he could have used Pluton to defeat Kaido, but he didn't do it. I believe that the reason why Odin didn't activate Pluton is directly related to the reason why Roger believed that he was too early and that he still had to wait for someone. In order for Pluton to be properly used, Poseidon had to be reborn and Joy Boy had to return. So that is why Odin allowed himself to be killed by Kaido and Orochi instead of just using Pluton to destroy them both. I'll get back to Poseidon, Joy Boy, and Uranus in a little bit, but first, let's talk about what Pluton actually is. It seems clear to me that Pluton can only be one thing. Pluton is New Wano itself. After the ancient kingdom lost the war 800 years ago, they decided to protect Pluton by placing it on top of Old Wano and then sealing it off from the outside world using those gigantic walls. Pluton is not just any battleship. It is a gigantic island-sized battleship that has been hiding in plain sight this entire time. This is why everyone who actually saw the blueprints was absolutely shocked at the sight of them. As experienced shipbuilders, people like Frankie, Rob Lucci, and Kaku knew that these blueprints were real, but they couldn't believe that something of that size and scale had actually been built. And that brings me back to the words that were used to describe the current state of Pluton on Wano. Pluton was said to be asleep or resting rather than being turned off or inactive or decommissioned. This implies that while Pluton is a highly advanced battleship, it may not be an inanimate object. Pluton may actually be an organic battleship, a battleship that was built on top of some sort of gigantic mythical creature, similarly to Zou being on top of Zunesha. Pluton could be a fortified battleship that was built on the back of a giant turtle or whale or some other mythical sea creature. And this sea creature is currently asleep on top of Old Wano. The creature's back is currently being used to house New Wano. But once the creature awakens, the residents of New Wano will return to Old Wano and Pluton will be used to fight against the world government. And also to destroy the Red Line, but more on that later. Oda gets many of his ideas directly from existing mythology. And there are myths throughout the world about giant sea creatures that are the size of islands, or that may even have actual islands on their backs. I believe that Pluton will ultimately be revealed to be just such a creature, but there is another possibility as well. I've always thought that one specific part of One Piece felt kind of random and out of place with the rest of the story. Mostly because it was never really followed up on since Water 7 and Annie's Lobby. I am talking about the Klaubautermann, which is a water spirit that dwells inside ships and is essentially the personification of a ship. This phenomenon occurs on ships that have gained a form of consciousness as a result of being particularly well loved and cared for by their crews. The Klaubautermann is thought to only be a legend in the world of One Piece. But this legend is confirmed to be true when the Going Merry's Klaubautermann reveals itself at Skypiea and then also in Water 7 and Annie's Lobby. Maybe this unique phenomenon that played such a pivotal role with the Going Merry will reappear again with another battleship, the ancient battleship Pluton. If Pluton is not a battleship that lies on top of a giant mythical creature, then it could be a battleship that has gained sentience due to the manifestation of a particularly strong Klaubautermann. This Klaubautermann may be quote-unquote asleep for now, but he will one day awaken when the time is right. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Could Pluton be located on the back of a giant sea creature, or could it be controlled by a powerful Klaubautermann? Now, the reason why Pluton has been asleep all this time is almost certainly related to the fact that the return of Poseidon and Joy Boy were required in order for Pluton to awaken. There was a meme going around social media that showed Zunesha using his giant trunk to drain the water from Wano, which is what ultimately reveals Old Wano and awakens Pluton. This is of course an excellent meme, but there may also be an important grain of truth to it. I think that Pluton can only awaken when certain conditions are met, and that is why Roger and Oden knew that it was still too early to open the borders of Wano 20 years ago. The other ancient weapons, Poseidon and Uranus, may be required to awaken Pluton, and the return of Joy Boy is likely directly related to all of this as well. I made an entire video in which I argued that Uranus is actually the Nika devil fruit itself, but the fruit first needed to awaken in order for Uranus to activate. If this theory is true, we now have Poseidon, Pluton, and Uranus all on the board, with only Pluton still needing to awaken. I believe that either Poseidon, Uranus/Joy Boy, or both are ultimately required to awaken Pluton. For example, the Sea Kings may need to play a role in tearing down the walls of Wano, or the new Joy Boy may need to command Zunesha to do something specific, such as draining the water around Wano, or something else along these lines. Pluton's ultimate awakening may even involve Vivi, the last remaining member of the ancient Nefertari family. In the past, I made the argument that the Nefertari family was allowed to remain in Alabasta for an important reason after all the other royal families left for Marijua at the end of the Void Century. After all, not moving to Marijua was seen as a betrayal by the Celestial Dragons. So why would the Celestial Dragons allow this betrayal to go unpunished? Why wouldn't they just destroy the Nefertari family and take control of Alabasta for themselves? I always felt that the Nefertari family in particular possessed secret knowledge about Pluton that made the world government hesitant to challenge them out of fear that Pluton could be turned against them. We know that Luffy himself doesn't really care about Pluton, which is certainly in line with his character, but he may come to regret not having Pluton in his corner when it comes time to take on the entire world government in the final battle. And of course, from a narrative perspective, it makes no sense for Oda to mention Pluton so many times and make such a big deal about it, only to never show it in the story. I wouldn't be surprised if Pluton is eventually retrieved not by Luffy, but by Vivi, Sabo, and possibly Shirahoshi just in time for the final battle. And all of them will then meet up with Luffy and the Straw Hats on the final battlefield. Whatever happens, I am confident that Pluton will be awakened and that it will play some major role in the epic conclusion of the One Piece story. It is only a matter of time. If you want to find out how I think everything will end and why I think the recent reveals about Plutons kind of spoiled the ending of One Piece, you are about to find out. I believe that all three ancient weapons will play an essential role in the final battle against the world government, and that the three of them coming together in one piece will be the key to everything. The Sea Kings, Pluton, and Uranus, which I believe could be Nika itself, will converge on the Red Line. A final epic battle will ensue, the Red Line will be destroyed, and this will create the All Blue. And so, the three ancient weapons coming together in one piece is the very thing that will allow the entire world to finally come together in one piece as well. There is a reason why the poneglyphs contain important information about the ancient weapons. Those who created the poneglyphs had limited space, and they used it to leave only the most important messages to the future generations. And yet, they chose to spend a lot of space focusing on the three ancient weapons. That is not a coincidence. It is because the ancient weapons will turn out to be indispensable in the fight against the world government. And this will become more and more clear as the final saga unfolds. Even if Luffy leaves Wano without awakening Pluton because he doesn't care about it, someone will definitely awaken it before the final battle. Someone like Sabo, Vivi, Shirahoshi, Dragon, or all of them together. And when that happens, Pluton and Poseidon will make their way to the site of the final battle, where Luffy and the Straw Hats will also be waiting. Uranus will be there as well, either in the form of the Nika Devil Fruit, or in whatever form it turns out to be in. And this is how One Piece will end. The Red Line will be destroyed, or at least the part of it around Marijua. The fishmen will evacuate to the surface inside the Noah. The world will be united in one piece, and a giant party will ensue across the entire All Blue. This is my prediction, and be sure to share your own predictions for how One Piece will end down in the comments. Oda has already confirmed that this is the final saga. The end really is near. So now is the best time to talk about the ending and theorize about it down in the comments below. Then when the series finally does come to an end, we can come back to this video, check the comments, and see if any of us were right. If you guys enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it helps a lot with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. It is a completely free but very, very important way of directly supporting the channel. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Check them out, link in the description. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.